All right, let's get started. Kevin Thelwell has left the New York Red Bulls after 2 years in charge, joining in 2020 and leaving now in 2022, February, both years, to join Everton as the football director of sport. My question, and I'll let you start because I've got some numbers here and some ideas, but do you think his time at Red Bull was a success as a director of football? Do you think that he had success there?
So he joined prior to the start of the 2020 season. Is that what it is?
Right about as the 2020 season kicked off. Yeah, February 3rd, 2020 was his first day.
Okay.
When it was made official.
Well, that was he probably had some time because it got delayed. That
Sure.
was the MLS is back. It's hard to say yes, seeing as how they finished in his tenure 6th and 7th. So they've been mid-table, and I don't want to fully put the blame on him because I don't think that RBG really probably backed them as financially as they should have.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I think that there are still there's good talent on this team moving forward. I think some of it will be putting the pieces together and just having time to get that chemistry and have the players develop together. I'm not going to say it was a success, but I wouldn't say it was failure either. He kept Red Bull in the playoffs both seasons he was here. That's just kind of Red Bull's thing, is to just make the playoffs every year. And he did it. Maybe not so convincingly as we saw last season, but he got the job done. They've made the playoffs. They have a pretty good young core, and they do what Red Bull wants them to do. Build up young players, sell them off to Salzburg and Leipzig, and be the feeder team for the Red Bull group. So I think he did what he needed to do, but I don't think that necessarily he wasn't, he didn't win anything. So it's hard to say that. I can't really call it a success.
I am going to say that it was. I'm going to say he was successful. Not massively successful, but he joins in 2020, and he took a team that really had no identity. Jesse Marsch had left. Chris Armas came in, and there was no clear structure as to how the team was going to play, what style they were going to use, what players they were going to use. No identity at all. It was the biggest question for 2 years regarding what this team was going to be. After the change happened, he helped guide them through, find a manager in Gerard Struber, gave him time and resources, which is something we didn't get a lot of, to make his mark. So here's what I'm going to compare to, right? Here, in 2018, our 3 non-Red Bull 2 signings: Matthias Jorgensen, Andres Ivan, Mark Schakowsky. Matthias Jorgensen never played a game, or never really played at all. Andres Ivan got a year and a half, made a bunch of sub appearances and left. Mark Schakowsky was probably the best of the bunch. Then you've got 2019, Mandela Egbo, basically a Red Bull 2 player his entire time here. David Jensen wears a really cool hat, went out on loan the year after he came in. Jason Pendon, somewhere on loan, nobody knows where right now. Played a couple of games and was subpar. After he came in, 2020 on, Wiki Carmona, Tom Edwards, Caden Clark, Carlos Cornell, Andrew Gutman on loan, Drew Yearwood, Patrick Klamala, Lewis Morgan, Dylan Nealis, and right before he left, he got Luquinhas over the line. He took a team that was basically buying 3 players a year and a bunch of Red Bull 2 players, and changed their identity from being just a Red Bull 2 to top to going out and finding players like Coronel, Wiki Carmona, Caden Clark, and implementing them into our team. That is something that is massive for what Red Bull will be long-term. Because for a long time, 2018, 2019, even 2017, that was a Kaku year. Outside of him, it was all youth players, right? So it felt like they had given up on us. But Thelwell came in and was able to work with what he had and bring in players that will most likely be successful in the next few years. I mean, on that list, this list doesn't include people who were unsuccessful, right? The Yuba Diarra injury incident, for example. But that is double what they did in 2 years prior. I'm going to say it's success because it'll be a long-term success. It didn't get us a trophy, it didn't get us a title, but it got us an identity and a clearer path forward, which is what his job as director of sport is supposed to be, right?
I don't think it's fair to be able to put a label on it yet, because he could bring in all these great players, but if they don't win anything, then what's the point? I think we got to wait and see, if this pans out, if these players do well here. If the goal is just to bring them on, build them up, sell them on for profit, then we don't have to necessarily look to see if Red Bull are winning trophies. But if Red Bull just consistently barely sneaks into the playoffs and then is out in one of the first few rounds of the playoffs, then what's the point? Is like you brought in all these great players, but it resulted in nothing. The point is to obviously win at the end of the day. And there's only so much that, Thelwell can do. But I just think it's tough to label his tenure as successful or not successful when we're so short into that time period.
Fair. I think, yeah, it'll definitely be easier to judge in 2-3 years. But I think just on paper and the gut feel, I'd say it was a pretty good start. Sure. But what does it mean for Red Bull? So Red Bull now have to first find somebody to fill the role. Right now, Dennis Hamlet's in charge, and Dennis Hamlet does not have a great track record of being in that role. He was kind of a fill-in last time that we had that change, and it wasn't anything special. Maybe Red Bull Global has somebody in the works, but basically it's not a great look that we are losing the guy who basically is in charge of making the entire philosophy of what the team is, recruiting players, getting the signings across the line the day before the season kicks off. Because now you're kind of up in the air of what is the path forward? Are we trying to be a feeder club? Are we trying to win titles? What is the path forward? And there's nobody there to make that call, right? Basically what the team needs to do, in my opinion, just prepare to play football, right? Don't worry about what's going on above you. Just go out and play the game. Expect minimal reinforcements until somebody gets in. Luquinhas and Edwards, when they get into the country, will be there. But you're not going to get any. I don't expect a ton of midseason signings. I don't expect a ton of reinforcements to come. Maybe outside of some Red Bull 2 players. I don't expect them to be very active in the mid-season window. It's going to take a while to get somebody who was at the level of Kevin Thelwell into that role again. But until we do, this is the team. They got to accept that. They got to be ready to move forward.
Yeah, not too much to add. That's pretty much how I think Red Bull needs to approach it. Just play. To the players, this probably shouldn't mean too much. At the end of the day, you just got to get the job done on the field.
Yeah.
If anything, if they were a fan, then they need to go prove that their signings will make the impact. So maybe motivation. I don't know. But yeah, I agree.
So my last question before we move on is, what does this mean for the league in general? We go out to England, we bring in this guy to be director of sport at one of our clubs, and he lasts 2 years and bounces. What does that mean for the league?
Maybe it's not so easy to transition from Europe to the US. I mean, we see a lot of movement from South America into the US, and for the most part, I would say it's gone pretty well. I mean, it's still a bit young, but maybe from Europe to the US is different. Maybe this isn't such an easy transition. And I know we're just talking about not necessarily players, we're just talking GMs in this case. I don't know. I don't know if it really has that big of an impact on the league. It's kind of, I mean, this is just a one sample size unless there were other instances of this. But I would say it probably doesn't have that big of an impact. But
Yeah, I mean, we know that MLS is not at the level of the Premier League in terms of popularity and draw and making people want to be there, right? We are not going to be able to convince people to stay or to leave when Premier League teams call. We just can't, not yet. If the players that we signed in that 2-year window grow into men's national team starters, sell on for successful fees to European clubs, it's only going to give a good rep to the league, right? Oh, this guy came in, left to go to a Premier League team. All the players that he brought in have now grown and are sold on. And like MLS is being looked at right now, is we are developing talent. If the players that he brought in continue in that path, then it's only going to be a good thing, right? He was always going to make his way back. He was not ready to make the full jump to MLS just yet. The roster rules are crazy. The style of play is not what he is used to. It would take probably years for him to understand all the nuances and simplicities and make the team the way that he wanted to make it. The issue is people in Red Bull don't usually get years to do things, right? Jesse Marsch gets moved as soon as he has success. Kevin Thelwell leaves after 2 years. Or if you're not doing well, Chris Armas is out after 2 years. You don't get many years to do things. I hope he does fantastically at Everton for whatever he has planned. I hope he kills it. But I don't think he was, I knew he was always going to go back. I just wish he had stayed a little bit longer. But for the league, we were never going to stop him. But he has the potential to help us grow by going into the Premier League and speaking well, putting players on loan to our teams, whatever. So hopefully we can make that connection now that he's been in both.
Yeah, last thing I wanted to say before we move on to the next subject. I didn't think about it until you had mentioned it, but we talk about the transition a lot from South American players or even European players coming over into MLS and just the style of play and everything. But I never really thought about the transition for like directors or general managers because of how different the league rules are. Like this is not nearly the same as making decisions at Everton, where there's no DP salary cap, TAM GAM kind of thing going on. Like that's certainly something where it's going to take some time to learn and get used to. Because I mean, I don't even, to be honest with you, I'd be shocked if Don Garber even knew the rules. There are just so many different nuances and rules, and if you pay attention to one MLS offseason, you'll see it. They're trading international slots. FCC makes $100K to do nothing, just to stay at number one and like what was it? I forgot what it was.
I think it was the allocation order.
Yeah, allocation order. I mean, they're trading draft picks. Draft picks don't exist over in England. I mean, there's so much to the complexity of this league that when it comes to directors, GMs, maybe even head coaches, there's a lot to learn. So it's not easy. It's super hard to transition from Europe to MLS or from anywhere to MLS in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. The transition was going to be hard, and I think he handled himself well. But the draw of being able to go back to the Premier League, not have to worry about any of that stuff, and just get players that'll fit a system he's used to seeing, we were never going to keep him.